I really can't begin to say how much appreciation and love I have for this man, Rene Lavand. He has one freaking arm, and he still is better than any magician, I would argue, today. His poetry, the way he was slow, everything is absolutely methodical and yet completely fooling with one arm. Now, unfortunately, Rene Lavand lost the use of his arm in Argentina, where he was born, I believe, as a child. And instead of moping and, I don't know, turning into a life of hentai and anime, what he did was that he decided to innovate. He innovated on the art form of magic, and he came up with techniques that I would argue are still relevant to this day with one arm. Switches and transpositions and different moves and palms with one hand that are just second to none. And today we're going to be taking a look at his 3 breadcrumbs routine, which is as simple could be, and yet he manages to, with repetition, make the effect more impressive with each subsequent phase.
Beethoven con 4 notas logra un segundo movimiento entero de una sonata como Claro de Luna. Pero para escribir eso hay que ser Beethoven, porque no es una simpleza, es una cosa simple. Bueno, yo no soy Beethoven, pero esto tampoco es una simpleza, es una cosa simple. 3 migas y un pocillo. 1, 2, in the pocket. Y siempre tengo 3. 1, 2, la belleza de lo simple, in the pocket, y siempre tengo 3.
So this is essentially the 2 in the hands, 1 in the pocket trick with a cup. Obviously, he's not going to do it with his other hand because he doesn't have another hand, so he uses the cup. But with that cup, it really takes the effect to the next level, especially because of its elegance, its simplicity, and you could see that what's going on is out of his control. It's in the cup. There's no other hand to do any sleight of hand with, pun intended. It's all in the cup that's right there, and he's extraordinarily fair. Now, here is where repetition actually makes a huge difference, because what you've seen right now is essentially the entire trick. Now, he varies it up in terms of method and in terms of the presentation as to how he puts the little breadcrumbs in the cup, but still, it's the same effect that he repeats throughout the entirety of the routine. When I first saw this done, I thought he had about 1,700 different balls that he would go through and somehow sneak in throughout the course of the trick. And that's the impression that I think he wants to give, is that he has way more breadcrumbs, which really builds up to the crescendo you're going to see at the end. And this is one of those rare instances where repetition actually enhances the effect, and the repetition becomes the effect, because now you're trying to figure out where these balls came from, and it just becomes increasingly impossible with each subsequent phase. This is different to the usual when it comes to magic tricks, which is once is a trick, twice is a lesson. So the second time you show somebody a trick, typically they're going to be more attentive. Here, it's the complete opposite. Even if they're more attentive, they're still going to get fooled just as bad. And you'd be a fool if you don't check out the PigCake Magic Academy, the home of over 1,500 videos going over card stuff, coin stuff, everything you need to become the best magician you could possibly be, all for the low price of $5 a month, which is the equivalent of a White Claw. The equivalent of a White Claw, and you get access to all these videos, and I'm always uploading new and innovative and fun content to the Academy. So check it out if you don't want to be a fool yourself.
1. Señora cámara. 2. In the pocket. Y siempre tengo 3. 1, 2. In the pocket. Y siempre tengo 3. 1, 2. Al bolsillo. Y siempre tengo 3. Mira. 1. ¿Quiere ver, señora cámara? 1. Slow. 2. In the pocket, slow. y siempre tengo tres.
Now, repetition could also lead to boredom. So how do you mitigate this? How do you go around it? Well, Rene Lavand is dynamic. He shifts in the speed of the revelation. In this case, he goes from really slow to really fast for the next subsequent phases. And that really adds to the impossibility, because how else could these balls be coming back to the cup? It's impossible. One thing too about Rene Lavand that you're going to see with a lot of his work actually is that he always shows you just enough for you to get convinced that the condition is what he's presenting it to be. He does this with his oil and water routine, where he shows you just enough red and black cards that you think they're really being mixed, when really they're not being mixed at all. And here's the exact same thing. He shows that one ball in the cup, which of course he can, because at this point there's nothing sneaky in the cup. But when he drops that second one, you're implying it's going to be in the exact same condition as the first, when really he's already done the dirty move. He's already dropped in a second ball into the cup. So it's very deceptive and seen in a lot of his other works.
Another. Toda la noche. Mira. 1, 2. Y siempre tengo 3. Mire. Señora cámara. 1, 2. Y siempre tengo 3. Sorry.
This part always drove me bananas, B-A-N-A-N-A-S, bananas, because of the fact that he's throwing them away. He's kicking the other one off, and then he throws the other one back. So it really adds to the impossibility, and it makes it seem like he has way more crumbs than he actually needs, when really he only needs an extra crumb.
Un chino en el siglo IV después de Cristo, el chino Li Po, gran poeta, dicen que jugaba con 3 migas mientras recitaba sus finos poemas. Debía ser algo parecido, nada nuevo bajo el sol. Me gustaría recordar la poesía. Sí, decía: tomo una botella de vino y me voy a beberla entre las flores. Siempre somos 3, contando a mi sombra y a mi amiga la luna. Cuando canto, la luna me escucha. Cuando bailo, mi sombra también baila. Terminada la fiesta, los invitados deben de partir. Yo desconozco esa tristeza. Cuando marcho hacia mi casa, siempre somos 3. Me acompaña la luna y me sigue mi sombra.
Now, a little fun tidbit if you've never seen the explanation of this particular trick, but it's funny because he actually mentions that the poet was from the 4th century, and I believe it's from the 2nd century. But the reason he does that is so he could show the 4 with his hand and have it have a reason for having that particular gesture. Showing that 4 with his hand is a lot more open to maybe showing a 2 or a 1. So that way it shows his hands subsequently empty without him having to actually show his hands empty, because he's technically palming a ball. So I thought that was a funny little bit of a tidbit. And here is where Rene Lavand gets his groove when it comes to poetry while doing magic tricks. And he's done this a lot with stories, and he likes to weave in all these tales of these gypsies and all these mysterious strangers from other countries far away. And he does this brilliantly. Here he's doing it with a poem. And of course, the poem really kind of retells the trick. And at the end, you're going to notice that it really builds up to the wonderful ending with, well, I won't spoil it.
Pero me gustaría repetirles la poesía, porque quizás no la escucharon por descubrir el juego. Terminada la fiesta, los invitados deben de partir. Yo desconozco esa tristeza. Cuando marcho hacia mi casa, siempre somos 3. Me acompaña la luna y me sigue mi sombra. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I say that as if I don't encourage you to look at the link in the description section below, watch the video in its entirety, and then look at this one. However, I don't like to spoil it. Now here, you notice the ending of the routine is brilliant. Everything is pretty much copacetic at the end. The balls vanish. And the lesson to be learned from this is not to do this trick. It's never to do the trick that I showed, but it's to take advantage of the underlying principles. In this case, the principle of repetition for this particular trick is what makes it an impressive trick, because it makes makes it seem like the balls are coming from nowhere. It's impossible how you could have these many balls on your person, and each phase subsequently cancels out the previous one. Also, the shifting of speed when it comes to repetition. So if the trick is going to be the same, why not vary up the speed? So that's what he does in the middle section there, where he goes from really slow and methodical to really rapid fire, and then right back to slow to show you down, hey, look, it's still very fair, just as fair as when I showed you in the beginning. Honestly, that's actually how I have sex.
I see you again, when 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 I see you again.